Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how you can add an iOS widget to your Expo application. Not just a static widget, but one that updates, shows dynamic data, and even shares state with your main application. We'll be using Expo Apple Targets, a powerful plugin by Evan Bacon that makes it simple to set up widgets and unlocks additional Apple features like quick actions, control widgets, app clips, watch apps, and more. So if you ever wanted to level up your application with a truly native widget experience, this video is for you. Let's get started. Now, before we dive in, just a quick note, this tutorial is iOS only. I get a lot of questions about Android widgets, but I don't have much experience with Android, honestly. For what I know, you have to implement them fully natively. So for this video, I'll be using Expo Apple Targets, which only supports iOS at the moment. If you're interested in exploring Android widgets, you can take a look at the React Native Android Widgets library. I haven't tested it myself yet, but it might be a good starting point. All right, so first things first. First of all, you need to have an application. And for this tutorial, I already have this very simple to do application that is using just useState and Expo Go. Super simple to do application, and what I want to do is just create a widget that is going to display the to-dos that we have for today, for example. So we're going to learn how to share data, how to update the widget, and most importantly, how to actually integrate it in your application. So like I said, we're going to be using Expo Apple Targets, which is a plugin by Evan Bacon that allows you to get started super quickly creating a widget. So the first thing that we need to do is run this command. Let's go to my project. And by the way, I created a branch for adding the iOS widget to this application, and I'm going to leave the link in the description. And if you want another example that uses a widget using Expo Apple Targets, I would recommend that you take a look at my groceries shopping list application. It's open source. You can find it in my GitHub, and I'm going to leave the link in the description as well in case you are curious. So let's go back to our project. The first thing that we need to do is just run npx create target and hit enter. Just like that, we can select what we want to do here. So let's select widgets, and boom, just like that, we have this folder on the left with the SwiftUI code for the widget. Now, a couple of things to notice here is that if you go to the package.json, now we have this Bacon's Apple Targets package in our project. Another thing to notice is that in the package.json, we have now this plugin, okay? Everything was added automatically. We didn't have to do anything. All right, step one is done. Let's go back to the docs. The next thing that we want to do is add the Apple Team ID in our app.json. So inside my iOS section here in my app.json, I'm going to paste my team ID. You can find your team ID in the Apple Developer Console. Okay, now we have a bunch of native code here on the left. That means that I can no longer use Expo Go. So let's create a development build for my project. Let's first of all run npx pre-build platform iOS with the clean flag and hit enter. Hit enter again. Next is just actually copy this entitlement section. Let's copy this. Let's go inside my iOS. Now, if you notice, we actually now have a bundle identifier. So let's paste the entitlements here. And at this time, it's actually a good point to update this if you want to, or something more simple or something that goes with your brand. Use, for example, dev.codewithbeto. And I'll just call this to do, just to keep it simple. Okay, so then I can reutilize this for my entitlement. Now for the entitlement, you can actually keep it even simpler by just keeping your brand name. So in this case, group, code with Beto, and the name of my application to do. Now, since we made changes to the app.json, let's run pre-build again with the clean flag to make sure that everything is going to be synced with the new entitlement and bundle identifier. Awesome. Now let's run the application. Let's say npx expo run iOS. Okay, and the build is in progress. Let's wait a moment. Okay, the build is ready. It's about to launch on my phone. Cool. So let's press open. Great. Now this, feels normal, feels like the regular application, but now if you go out and long press on your app, it now has widgets. So just like that, we were able to add a fully working widget to your application. Now, someone actually asked me on X, how can I, add a widget and still use EAS to build my application, Expo application services? And the answer is you don't have to do anything special. Just make sure that you are passing your Apple Team ID here. I personally use this in my AI tattoo application, and just by setting the Apple Team ID, you can still use EAS, and EAS is going to handle the credentials for you. So just keep building and it should work. So now at this point, we're ready to start actually working on our widget in SwiftUI. But before I opened the SwiftUI files on Xcode, I want to do one more thing, because right now I pre-built the entire React Native project that we have here. Xcode is not going to load the preview for the widget, and this is actually going to cause some problems. So in order to be able to have previews on Xcode for my widget, let's pre-build the project with a template, special template that will only precompile the code for the widget. Let's go back. I'm going to go to the package.json. I'm going to paste this in here. So basically, I'd like to call my script pre-widgets. So this script is going to run with the flag expo no git status check npx expo pre-build using the template that comes with Apple Targets with the package. So I'm grabbing this from the node modules and just pointing to Bacon's Apple Targets pre-build blank.tgc -- clean. Okay, so let's hit save. And now let's do that. I'm going to say bun and then pre-widget. Hit enter. Because I set the flag expo no git status, this is just going to start doing it right away, which is great. Okay, now after this, something fun is actually if you run the application on the simulator, you are going to see a black screen. This is because the React Native application is not loaded, only the widget, which is what we want to start working on the widget. Now I'm going to open this in Xcode so that we can actually start working on the widget by running xed iOS and hit enter. This is a shortcut that is going to open the iOS folder that we have here in Xcode. Okay, this might be a bit hard to see, but on the left, we have now these Expo targets inside the simple to do application. And then we have the widget. And the source code for the widget is going to be inside this file called widgets. On the right, we have the preview, so I can just press refresh and we should be able to see our widget and start doing stuff here. Okay, and after a moment, I'm able to see the widget. You can press the magnifier here, make it big, 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 and actually be able to see the widget. So this is how it looks. Super cool. Of course, from here would be nice if you are already familiar with SwiftUI, but if you are not, actually ChatGPT is pretty good to write a SwiftUI, so you can ask for a specific look and ChatGPT will do it for you. But yeah, the widget entry view is what we're looking at right now. So if I come here and remove this text, we should be able to quickly see, right, what's going on there. So let's create a text that says, hello widgets. And the Xcode previews work super nice here because we only have, the widget in the project. So it doesn't need to compile anything else. All right, so at this point, we are ready to start sharing data between our application and our widgets. So how can we do that? So first of all, I would actually recommend that you create a struct for the data that you want to display here. So for example, you can say struct to do, to do item, for example, and this is going to be codable. This is going to conform codable. And I think I can make this bigger so that everyone is able to see. Now back to my application. I just want you to take a look at the structure that I have in my to-dos. So we have an ID, title, completed ad, and created ad. And we might need this data here in Xcode. So it's just a matter of saying let ID equal to string. You can actually paste it. It's actually pretty similar to TypeScript. And just say let's and let's. So we want to pass an object. Of course, we need to say here, this is bool and date. And just to keep things simple, I'm not going to pass the created at. Great. Now, when you are working with your widget in the preview here inside Xcode, I would recommend that you have dummy data because, the preview does not have access to the network or your application inside the preview. You would need to compile the application, but in order to develop faster, I would recommend to just have dummy data here. So let's create an array of to-do items. I'm going to say var mog data. This is going to be of type an array of to-do item, and then we can start creating the list. So say to-do item, and when we can initialize this to be 1, title, I don't know, wash the car, and completed equal to false. Go for a run, and let's set one of these to be true. It's good to play around with values, right? So if you have multiple values, set 1 to true, set 1 to false, and stuff like that. So now inside my widget entry view, I can iterate over these items using a for each. Let's pass the mock data, and we can take an ID from the list. Since this is codable, I think that's why we can take this ID here. And then we can say to do in. So for each to do in this list, we are going to render, a text, right? And now we have the list of items. And then we can access the to do completed. So if it's completed, I'm going to render a text with the check emoji. Of course, I need to do it like this. Perfect. And now, of course, this is going to be a age stack. Awesome. Otherwise, we can have an X. This is pretty ugly UI. I would recommend to just ask ChatGPT to generate a nice UI. But for the example, this works really nice. And one thing you can do in Xcode, which is pretty cool, is change the system size of the widget. So you can say system medium, and this will show you the preview, and you can see how this is going to look on different sizes. I'm going to return this to small because you can actually duplicate this. You can have it 3 times and then change this to be system medium and then system arch. And then you will have 3 views here that you can quickly change and see how this is going to look on each of them. Okay, let's actually use real data for this widget. Let's go back to our application. A cool thing about Apple Targets is that it comes with an extension for storage within the widget. So we can just say storage equal to new extension storage, and we can bring this from Bacon's Apple Targets. Then we can initialize the storage. This is going to take the app group, as you can see here, and you can grab this from the app.json. So let's copy this string and paste it in here. And just like that, you can just call storage and the methods set or get like this. Storage dot get, remove, and set. So ideally, we want to set these values each time that we create a to-do or delete a to-do. So when we add a new to-do, let's store it in a new variable so that we can then set the state, and then we can also set the widget value. So I'm going to say const new to-dos equal to, and then I can grab this array from here and just paste it in here. Then we can set to-dos, and then we can also call storage set. And this set function is going to take a key for my to-dos, because you can have multiple objects, right? Or multiple data in your widget. And it's a good idea to have it, well organized. So let's go up here and let's create a key. Yes, storage key. I would recommend something like widget underscore to-dos. Let's pass the key. And then let's pass the actual data. So let's say json.stringify and pass it to-dos. And we can do the same when we delete a to-do. And we can do the same when we toggle a to-do because we need to update the widget, right? And the state in the widget. Okay, so this is how it looks now. We are just setting and setting each time that we change something. Okay, so now at this point, we are setting data on the JavaScript side. Let's go to the native side on the widget and read this data and actually display this data from the widget. So let's go back here. All right, so now inside my widget enter view, I'm going to access the defaults using user defaults like this. And I need to pass a suite name. This is going to be my app group. So if you remember, always come here and copy paste so that we don't have any typos. All right, so with this, we have the instance of the defaults. Okay, so once we have these defaults, actually, I just realized that this needs to be inside the body. And what I'll do is just grab the defaults from user defaults, passing my group identifier, and then we can create this variable for the to-dos, which is going to try to get this data from the widget to-dos. And this is the key that we set it here. So if we actually have data, we're going to decode it and we're going to give it the type of to-do item. And otherwise, if we don't have anything, this is going to be an empty array. What we need to do now is instead of iterating on the mock data, we can iterate over the to-dos. So at this point, you notice that we don't see anything on the preview. This is because, this is just a preview. It cannot access this data right now. We would need to compile the application again. Okay, so back to our application. So instead of doing bond pre-widget, in this case, we need to pre-build again normally. So let's say npx expo pre-build platform iOS with a clean flag. Let's wait for a moment. Let's see, npx expo run iOS. Hit enter. Here we go, guys. It's compiling. Awesome. We have our to-dos. Of course, these to-dos are hard-coded. Let me close the application. Now, my widget is blank, right? So what's going on? Why we're not able to see anything? Well, first of all, we haven't really created anything, right? Because our items that you can see here, these are the initial to-dos. But if I just change this to be like an empty array, technically we don't have anything, right? It's 0. So if I add a new to-do, let's call Beto, add it, boom. Everything, it's going great, I think, right? I don't see any major warning in the console or anything. Now, if I leave the application, I would expect to have an item not completed. And if I close it, nothing. Okay. So the reason for that is because we need to refresh the widget each time that we add data. So a good time to refresh the widget could be when you actually leave the application, not each time that you refresh data, right? So we can actually use app state from React Native. And app state lets you access the events, active, background, inactive of your application. So for example, background happens when the user, moves away from your app. It's in another application, or they close the application, your app's still in the background, but they haven't fully quit your application. So that, in this case, it's a good time to refresh the widget. So we can use background here. So we can say app state on change. We can access the background. And for now, let's add a console log that says background. Let me clear the console. Let's close the application. And we get the background log here. Let's open it again. Close it. Background, right? So that's when you actually want to, trigger the refresh of the widget. I'm going to refresh the widget. So how can we do that? Finally, I'm going to let you know, which is now, you just need to copy the extension storage name, paste in here, and this comes with a method called refresh widget. Sorry, reload widget. And that's it. That's all. So let's hit save. So by the way, I'm actually not storing the to-dos inside my application, but this to-do should be saved in the widget, right? Can we all agree on that? Let's add a console log just for our own sake. Clear the terminal. I'm going to leave the app, reload it, and I'm not able to see my data. Okay, guys, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. It turns out that you don't need to change this to be a string, which you can just pass it directly like that. So yeah, I just added this quick test, removing the JSON stringify. And after leaving the application, it worked just fine. So let's add Beto. And I'm going to complete both. Let's open the console so that everyone can see. You clear it and exit. After a moment, we have this nice transition, right? And it looks really cool. By the way, I added an extra view here, just checking if we don't have to-dos, then we're just going to render, a text that says no to-dos. So we can recompile this for the iPhone error that I have here, and it should work just fine. Now, the warning that we get here is because it turns out that storage does not accept Boolean values, which is what we're passing here for the completed. So what you can do here is maybe instead of having a Boolean, you can change this to be a string and then validate whether the string is equal to completed or not completed. For now, I'm just going to leave it like that. It still works, but just to keep that in mind. Okay, so just to clean the widget data, I added this function, which is going to set everything to be an empty array. And if we close the application, now we get the no to-dos string. Of course, you can improve this. But yeah, from here, we can add items. Let's add one completed and one uncompleted. Exit. Have a nice refresh. And that's it for today. I hope this helped you understand how you can add powerful native iOS widgets to your Expo application. If you found this useful, feel free to give it a like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you want to learn next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.